then we started to get to a point where we said, we have a dream of having our own building one day and a larger space where we could have more dressing rooms, help with the business model, but really create a beautiful environment. And so from going to that second spot, again, we only have had one location this whole time, but from going to there, I looked at Mindy, I was like, we really need to do a brand overhaul. Like, how do we get clear on the really special uniqueness of something new? So we also invested in that. That felt hard at that moment. This was probably 2018 or so. And we went from, being decent to getting crystal clear on like, what is our company about? What are the distinct things? What is the essence of what's happening in the store? So we hired some guys, they came in, they observed us, they interviewed our customers, our team, us, and we landed on this idea of celebration. And so I bring this up because this was a key moment in our business evolution.
Thank you for joining me on the Investing for Freedom podcast. I'm super excited about today's episode. I've got a great friend, Jordan Linscombe, on the episode today. And just since I've met this guy, we've become really good friends. I really just connect with him and his wife, Mindy, and the way that they do life and business. And he's just in this interesting transition period too, that he calls career consolidation. And I actually think that you, the listener, is really going to enjoy this conversation, because listening to, Jordan's backstory and the success that him and Mindy have had in their business, and just the focus that they believe in, just being present with their family and family first, yet they have all the things that most of us are going after when it comes to terms of, financial freedom and that time freedom and a successful business. And Jordan recently quit his job of a lot of years. I don't remember how many, but it's been a lot. And they're in this transition period. So I think it's just going to be an amazing conversation. Jordan and Mindy own one of the country's largest bridal and former wear retail businesses. They have commercial real estate. They've just done some amazing short-term rental properties. I've actually got to spend some time at their house in Colorado Springs. Just a beautiful, beautiful family. And just the way that they live life is so inspiring. So Jordan, thanks for being on the show, bud.
Hey, you bet, Mike. Honored to be with you. Love your show. And Mindy and I have so enjoyed meeting you and Kara and getting to know you guys. So pleasure to be with you.
Why don't we just jump into this? And I'm just really excited to, just connect deeper and really find out, what drives Jordan, what drives Mindy. But why don't you give us some background and then talk to us about the transition that you're in?
Yeah, you bet. So I've got an incredible wife, Mindy. We've been married 18 years now, and we met in university years and started our early careers out in Colorado Springs, where we live. We love it here. Incredible place to live and raise children. We both had teaching jobs and then some other jobs early on in our career, but she had always wanted to do her own thing, but we didn't quite have a pulse on like, what should it be? So as we were planning our wedding, she went to some bridal shops in Colorado Springs. She went to some in Denver. And it was this weird, extremes of maybe a nice shop where they were snooty and they're like, well, what's your budget? And kind of offensive to she and her mom. Or way on the other side, like nice people, but not a very nice store location. And so she walked out of that experience and actually got her dress in Tulsa, where we went to college, from somebody we knew. And she's like, I think Colorado Springs could really use a bridal shop. And so we put a business plan together, really encouraged her. Her dad gave us some ideas. But she went into 6 months of business planning, and we talked about it. And I was like, I'd rather you go for it now and we do this versus being 57 and say, man, what if we had done it? So she was done with grad school. I was finishing up. We were kind of trying to get the stuff out of the way, if you will, in those early years of our career. And so she put the plan together. We opened early 2008. And so thank God we got the financing and everything settled like in late 2007. And we opened a 900 square foot store called Something New Boutique. It's a bridal and formal wear store. So that was the early beginnings. Took out a HELOC on our house, newlyweds. I had saved up money, got us a home. And so it felt really risky at the time. But I was confident knowing that she's an incredible go-getter, visionary. I've got a skill set for more operational admin. And all this is developed. I was 25 at the time. She was 27.
Wow.
So it was a big leap, but I think that's part of our story is we took a big risk and we took it early, but we did our best with what we knew or what we researched to get it going. So that was the genesis. Happy to share more, but it's gone from that to now an over 10,000 square foot store, and we're 16-year overnight success with Something New.
Yeah, I like that 16-year overnight success. So Mindy has a podcast too called Something New. Are you part of that, or is that just
Yeah, absolutely. So we have the Something New show, and Mindy's the host. The theme of the show is how to create a life worth celebrating. And so it's open for anyone. It's a great variety of intriguing guests. A lot of our friends through the Wellspring Mastermind that we've met have been on the show. We'd be honored to have you in the studio sometime, Mike. But we've really narrowed the focus of the Something New show, especially for working moms. And so I think Mindy just speaks to that so well. What is it like to balance the career, especially if you're doing something on your own, kind of a director or CEO level working lady? It's just a phenomenal kind of wonder to watch, right? As you've seen with your family and what Kara does. But I help produce the show, so I'm there behind the scenes helping with collaborating with our team as well too, so that we get stuff going week in and week out with the show. So it's been really fun to be a part of that. We launched that here in 2023, and it's growing and we love it.
so? Just a little bit more on the bridal shop too, because I'm just really curious, watching this from the outside. So you said it's like a 10,000 square foot bridal shop now. What's that evolution been like? Number one, and then you guys are really leaders in the space as far as like mentoring and helping other bridal shops too, right? I mean, I gather that from a distance. I don't know the details around it, but would love to hear how all that evolved and what that looks like.
Yeah. So the initial bridal shop, we started really lean, started really basic. And so, for example, we didn't have an employee till a couple of months in. Not saying this is the best way, Mike, but we didn't pay Mindy until 3 years into owning the company. Like we just tried to invest into it, keep it strong, keep it healthy, have margin for the company's operations. And so, I've got to give credit to my mother-in-law. We just had a great breakfast with her and my father-in-law this morning. She helped us out a little bit in the early days. But then eventually we hired one teammate, got things going a little bit better. Fast forward, we were 3 years in, Mike, on maybe a 5-year lease at that 900 square foot space. And we're like, we have to break this lease. We got to pay a $10,000 fee to get out of here because it's cramping our potential. So we had identified another spot closer to the interstate. Just in the bridal retail world, the closer you are to an interstate, the better. And then we took a risk going into an empty commercial building. We were the first business to go into it. And so we went from 900 to 3,000 square feet. So we basically tripled 3 years into the company as far as space. And part of the business model is the more dressing rooms you have, the more people you can help. Now you got to help them well. You got to create a great experience, right? But we were like, we need more dressing rooms. So we did that, grew the team, eventually got to get Mindy some payment and things for what was going on. But we'll talk to that more today. Delayed gratification has been a big part of our story. Just the long play and trying to see beyond just the moment. That's really been part of our success by God's grace and a lot of hard work. So we were at the 3,000 square foot space, and then other businesses started coming on that shopping strip next to us. Now it's in a prime location. It was really quiet, kind of a risky spot to go in back then. Now it's a bustling shopping center. We were there for 9 years. We grew the team. We grew in learning. We invested in getting some coaching during that season from another gentleman that was further along than we were, right? It's kind of anybody who's gone somewhere is found somebody who can teach them or coach them along the way. And that really helped us, so it felt hard cutting some checks, in that season of our business maturity. Like, okay, but we got to pay to get some knowledge and save some time. That really helped. And then we started to get to a point where we said, and we have a dream of having our own building one day and a larger space where we can have more dressing rooms, help with the business model, but really create a beautiful environment. And so from going to that second spot, again, we only had one location this whole time, but from going to there, I looked at Mindy as like, we really need to do a brand overhaul. Like, how do we get clear on the really special uniqueness of Something New? So we also invested in that. That felt hard at that moment. This was probably 2018 or so. And we went from, being decent to getting crystal clear on like, what is our company about? What are the distinct things? What is the essence of what's happening in the store? So we hired some guys, they came in, they observed us, they interviewed our customers, our team, us, and we landed on this idea of celebration. And so I bring this up because this was a key moment in our business evolution. Because I said, hey, before we go to like a 10,000 square foot space, let's make sure like the branding's sharp, it's current, it best exemplifies who we are. And the guys came to us and they said, you know what, when we sit in your store, when we see how you treat people, how you make it more than just the dress, we went from saying where the girl comes before the dress in the store to actually an even more important thing, saying life's worth celebrating. So you heard me talk about that with the show, but in our bridal shop, that's our motto. That's our theme. That's the essence of who we are. And so celebration is the whole experience, but we sell high quality, amazing gowns. A lot of them you can't find anywhere else. And that branding clarity, even the new colors, the like block font, which was very different than a lot of the scripty kind of dainty stuff in the bridal industry. We made a very bold statement. We said, okay, we're going to expand to 10,000 square feet, but also have a very new, fresh look and feel. So that was a big, big maturity point for us as well, too. So long story short, we built an 18,000 square foot building. It's quite a project. It's quite new for us at that time. That was in 2018 when we started the whole process. Fast forward, we moved into January of 2020. We got to move the bridal shop to the whole top level. And then we had spaces downstairs. Go through COVID, all the things. That wasn't easy to carry the load with some empty units for a while. As of late last year, again, long play, delayed gratification, late 2021, we got the building 100% occupied. So it's an incredible spot, beautiful part of Colorado Springs. But that's a bit of our business evolution and story, kind of from spot 1, 2 to 3.
Man, your guys' timing, like 2008 and 2020 is like impeccable. I love it.
Yeah, it's wild, and we literally went we closed the doors on the second spot. And then we were able to put our building like 100 yards away on an empty dirt lot on the corner. So we literally closed the doors on a Thursday here. We opened like on a Friday across the parking lot the next day. So my wife's incredible. She can plan ahead 90 days in advance. So she's got superstar powers with that. But anyways, yeah, it was pretty wild timing. We're so glad we got in before much further into 2020.
Let's talk about you and your journey. So let's talk a little bit about, because you're in major transition right now. Like you just quit your job. You're part of the business. You're focused on, I'll let you tell the story, but why don't you give us, so why don't you dig into like your past, your background, and then what has happened this last year? It's a crazy pivotal time for you.
Yeah, you bet. I had a pretty special upbringing where I got to live out of the country as a child, Mike. And so really 3 to 5 years of my childhood were in Mexico and Latin America. So that shaped a bit of who I was and what I was looking to do in my early career. My wife and I were Spanish teachers, like straight out of college in our early years. That was an incredible way to get to know our community. I'll put it that way. We loved teaching. We were pretty good at it. But we realized, one, the better you do, the more you put into it, your pay is kind of the same. And so I was even talking about this with my son yesterday, how it's not just pay teachers more, like the system needs to be fixed, incentivizing and rewarding, right? So while we loved those years, we got beyond that. We started the store. And then fast forward, I was able to work for a wonderful organization called Compassion International. It's one of the largest not-for-profits in the United States, but it helps release children from poverty in Jesus' name. Amazing organization. It basically doubled in size during my 14 years there with them and the team. So remarkable, amazing mission and what they do. I got to travel the world, help with things from operations to the program. And then in the final years, be our global marketing leader for trips and visits and virtual experiences where we connected supporters and donors to the children and churches they got to help support. So that was a shaping experience because I got to see all different aspects of a large corporation. And so it was really interesting to go home in the evenings or to our bridal shop in the evenings where I had one foot in very large not-for-profit corporation with over 3,000 staff worldwide. And then our company had, maybe 10 staff and was a couple of years in. Now we're about 25 or so, certain times a year. So I really enjoyed so many aspects of that, Mike. But it got to a point where I said, what does it look like to transition ourselves and work myself out of a job in the corporate sense? I really wrestled, and I could honestly tell I stayed very faithful to give my best in the corporate job that I had. And there were great things about it. But a season came, a couple of years ago where I realized I started really talking with my wife and said, what's the right timing? What does it look like? Part of our challenge with that I'll bring up, and we can talk to it as you like, is one of our biggest challenges in life is one of our children, our second born son, had a cancer journey that he went through. He was age 2, about 3, had to go through a whole year of chemo. So a lot of our life plans, kind of career plans, had to shape around those 5 or so years of Brody's life. And by God's grace and the help of doctors, the chemo worked. It's a very scary, challenging time. But I was literally cutting checks for the bridal shop from the hospital, doing Zoom calls for the corporate work from the hospital, and really just thankful that God saw us through that season. So we got through that, kind of caught our breath. And then started thinking and looking at like, what does it look like? What does the business have to get to in order for me to step away from the corporate work? So we were looking at it and was able to do that in May of 2023 this year. Step away from 14 years of corporate career, really had a rich relational network that I was very proud of, with compassion. And again, I could call friends in 30 countries today and still have fantastic connections and relationship with them. But it was getting to a point in time, and bluntly, Mike, just for myself as a husband and a dad, I had so much going on in so many directions. It had to come to a decision point saying, okay, what does this look like? It might be a risk to step away, but it was time. And so we made that choice. I was super grateful. It felt great. It was emotional. It was different in the transition. So for those of you listening, or maybe you're teetering with, should I do this? Should I not? One, I would encourage people, seek unity if you're married, seek unity with your spouse, or whoever that significant other is in your life. Mindy and I are big believers that unity always trumps disunity. We got coaching on this from a great guy named late Tim Evans, and his wife, Ann Evans, who's still here in the Springs. But they coached us. They were saying like unity in a decision as a husband and wife is one of the most powerful things that exists on this planet. And whether things go great or not, you were in unity on the decision, and you can't finger point at each other, right? And so in a brief way, we had come to unity. We felt it was time. And so took that step in May. We launched 2 other companies this year. One is the Something New show. And then we also have Something New Resources, which is a coaching and resourcing company for other retail bridal shop owners. So that, along with some of the real estate properties and things, we've got 4 kids, 4 companies, and it feels really great. Yeah, it's still things to manage and to lean into as a business owner. But I'm really loving the flexibility and the freedom to better choose how we spend our time, our energy, and involvement with that. So,
Did you say unity always trumps disunity?
yeah, unity trumps disunity. It's one of the biggest things that shaped our life and our marriage, and really our decision making and parenting, what we do with our business, even cash flow decisions. That's one of the biggest shaping ideas for us in our marriage and in our co-leadership of our company together.
Yeah. You know what I loved? The first time we really connected, we were in Arizona and we spent some time on a bus. And I remember just standing outside the hotel as we were loading, and you were telling me the story about your son. And, Kara and I had some health issues with Dylan, our oldest son. And one of the things that I often say a lot is that, life doesn't get easier. We just get better. We get stronger. And what I've really loved about you and Mindy from the time that I met you is you guys are so positive. It's almost like nothing ever goes wrong in your world. And I know, and I'll drive home the point here. And I'd like you to speak to this because, I think sometimes people in the day of social media and, Mindy and Jordan, they're just crushing it and business is great. And you've already touched on some things. I mean, having to go through what you guys went through as a family is like gut wrenching. I mean, I was actually tearing up when you were telling me the story to begin with, because it's bringing back those, old feelings and memories, and those things never leave you. But I'd like you to just kind of touch on that concept, because again, I think sometimes people look from the outside, and again, you guys are so positive and driven and optimistic, but that's not without cost at times. And so can you just address that? Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. Mindy teaches me something every day, even when I last saw her today, about, hey, let's stay positive and let's look at the options here, or the opportunities, right? So I'm always challenged and to be a better man and be a better husband and dad by an incredible wife. It's one of the most important decisions somebody can make, in my opinion, is who you marry, right? But I think before the cancer journey, but even especially in that, we started to realize hope and looking for opportunity is such a vital thing to the soul. I mean, I've heard in the show, you talk a lot about this scripture, hope deferred makes the heart sick. But on the other hand, the other part of the proverb, is if we have dreams and all these other things, it's like life to our bones and life to who we are. And so we really have felt that, and that was a sucker punch from nowhere with the cancer journey. But I think you get to a point where you're like, when you've nearly died on the inside by watching your kid kind of shrivel up and almost lose their life, then you really learn like the preciousness of living. And so, yeah, we have things like everyone, from having to manage staff and employees and do our best to hire new ones and quality ones, letting some go at times. I've got tenants at times that we got to get on them to pay rent and all the things. And so, yeah, there's a lot that we're proud of, but behind the scenes, it is managing it a lot. And so I think the choice each day is like, are we going to try to do our best to stay in unity and be positive and be solution oriented as a couple or as an individual too in this family unit? Or are we going to be negative and just complain? So yeah, there's a time to like, talk with your business partner or your spouse or even your kids, but then there also is another time of like, okay, what are we going to do about it? And, you and I both know, we all know Daniel Grothe, our common friend, is an incredible pastor and author. When we were in the hospital with Brody, it was the early days of this, 2015, it was bleak. And his parents came by. They have this incredible knack and just, they've been very intentional about being there for people in the hospital. Like they do it better than almost anyone else. And his mom, Becky, looked at us and she said, 6 words: strength for today, hope for tomorrow. So some of you may know it's from an old hymn and a song, but that was just like what we held on to was strength for today, hope for tomorrow. And it wasn't like, okay, do we know all the answer for a year from now? Do we know if the chemo is going to work? Do we know if our company's going to make it? Like Mike, at that time, something new wasn't as strong as it is in these last 3 or 5 years. We've learned a lot, like, that kind of compounding returns of investment, learning, growth really kicked in, I'd say about 2018 to 2022. However, we just try to keep it, okay, for today. Like how do we find strength and how do we stay hopeful for tomorrow? So, in the day-to-day now, busyness of getting kids to sports and rehearsals and all the things, I'm still working on this. My wife's incredible at it, but we just try to say positivity is always going to help. It's always going to bring an energy and something that's life-giving to our kids, to ourselves, and those around us and our team.
Yeah. Going through something like what you went through, it changes you at your core. And yeah, I remember when Dylan was in the hospital, we met this couple. I might have shared this with you, but we met this couple who I still remember their daughter. Her name was Rebecca. And she was like on her 3rd open heart surgery. In fact, the day that we like walked into ICU, like she had a surgery that morning and then they were going to go back in the next day, but it was like too intrusive. So they couldn't do it all at once. And they just like had her chest packed with ice. Like they still had her open, but they like, they didn't want to close her up because they knew they were going back in. I mean, just if there's one thing that I learned through that whole process is just like, as bad as you think you've got it, like there's always someone that, is going through challenges, and it's not a competition on it who's in worse shape, but like these people were so positive and they were talking about Moses and Miriam. And when Miriam put Moses into I think it was the Nile River and had to just like trust in God. And that's kind of where it was at. And, when we're like, for the audience, there's so many challenges today, like, financial, and we're in wars and it's just challenging time. But the reality is, at the end of the day, when you go through something like what you and Mindy went through, and Kara has said this so many times, like, what are they going to do? Take our kids? Like, there's been these benchmarks along the way that it's like, at the end of the day, like nothing really matters but healthy kids and healthy families. And I'm not saying that we should bury our head in the sand when everything's negative, but it just brings you a perspective. And I just remember like hearing that story about, there's nothing more hard and frustrating, I think, as a parent than looking at your kid and knowing that there's absolutely nothing you can do for them on a daily basis, when we're dealing with our businesses or money or investments or whatever. I mean, generally speaking, there's not very many times or circumstances where the situation or the issue that we're in isn't a direct result of something that we've not been taking care of or have been putting off, or even if it was an extra, outside event like a COVID or whatever. There's rarely times where we can't do something about it. But man, with what you went through with Brody and what we went through with Dylan, like literally there's nothing that you can do. And that just changed my whole perspective on so many things going forward. What did that do for you guys?
Yeah, I think I've been thinking about this week, Mike, there's a lot in the news right now. There always is, but it's heavy out in the world, like you were saying. I think it's this, you got to develop this resilience of recognizing there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of suffering, there's a lot of heartache in a broken world. But we talk with our children about, like, you and I both follow in the ways of Jesus, but we say God invites us to join into the restoration of all things. And so I try to talk with our kids. They're 13 to 6 at the moment, but we're saying, how can we be proactive and be a part, even if it's something at their school or in our company or somebody at the coffee shop that you can tell just needs a word of encouragement, right? And so being resilient and helping in the restoration and things in our community, in our neighborhood, in our company. Maybe it's through something that somebody invests in for the good, I think it's this dance. Balance is a weird word, right? I think rhythms are more realistic in life, right?
Mhm.
I think it's this dance, a rhythm of like, you're not closed off to the heartache in this world, but you kind of have to let the drama stay airtight in a box and not get to you. And even this week, there's some business stuff where I was like, hey, that's that person's issue. They're not being responsible. What I really care about is this at the end of the day.
Mhm.
And so we're not going to lose time and energy on that because they need to just be responsible for that. But then reflecting on others, okay, but what's our part? What's our thing to show up either as a team leader or as a property owner, as a parent? And so I think it's this dance of like not letting somebody else's drama or negativity get to you, but also not being closed off so that you can be sensitive or discern like, hey, this is a moment to pause in the busyness or the hurriedness of life and recognize that kid in your household or that team member or that neighbor of yours, or that business partner really needs someone to check in on them and just have a word of encouragement, a word of life versus just the go, go, go. So I think that speaks to what you're saying, but for us, it's been like don't take on the weight of something that you can't change. And at the same time, don't be insensitive and don't be out of touch. But we all have limited time. We all have limited energy, right? Managing those is really important. So how can we best do that and be intentional about using our time and energy to bring life to other people around us in the midst of all of that challenge of this world?
Yeah, so good, man. Okay. So when I sold my business in 2014, I've often said it was the best and worst day of my life. You're in a transition, and it's different because when I sold my business, I wasn't prepared for it. I didn't have the time that you've had to, think through what does it look like when I quit my career that I've been a part of for all these years and transition. But I'm curious for you and for the audience, and again, they're completely different, but I'm curious through the process, how this has felt. What are maybe some of the things that you had built up in your mind of what this looked like and the expectations around how it was going to be that are completely different, that are maybe the same, that are maybe better? What's this transition been like?
Yeah. Yeah. So I transitioned in late May. It's October at the time we're recording this. So, half a year in, it was a bit emotional for sure to drive home after, being at a place where I'd helped really add a lot of value for 14 years and build relationships. I had dreams and aspirations of what I wanted to accomplish beyond what realistically happened. So if we can speak to that for a moment, maybe you and your business, you're like, hey, I wanted it to actually go here. But that's something I've I don't know, tried to just humbly come to grips with. There are times where you're like, okay, like it was good, but this maybe still had more in the tank, but it was time to to sell the company or to cut the losses or move on. Right. And so that was a definite process in those early couple of weeks of like, I'm letting go. It's a loss in a way and a really big gain in others. And so I've been one, Mike, where like my wife can see the need to make a change, but faster than I can in quite a few areas of life. Maybe it's just me, but it got to the point where I felt comfortable with it and it felt right. So after getting through that some things immediately day one, I invested in our freedom. We invested as a couple for many, many years to get to that moment. It wasn't okay, in the next 90 days, we'll do this. Like it was quite a process. And like I was saying, to honor both things, the growing opportunities we had and the responsibilities of a corporate work. But we immediately went into summer break as a family. We got to do a Disney cruise, some fun things that kind of been bucket list for us. And I can't tell you enough how amazing it was to not have a Monday afternoon Zoom call that I had to be in. Now, in our bridal shop team, we have Monday meetings. We have structure with what we do every week now. It's not like we shirked responsibility. However, just to have the freedom to say, okay, how are we going to shape the week? How can I join in with my wife and what's already going on and the new things we're creating with new companies? That's been an incredible feeling. And so I feel like it's a work in progress, but the ability to be a more lighthearted dad and be present and show up and hey, sorry, I got to be on this call or this, or I got to go on this trip that was part of the job, but maybe I didn't really want to be there. To not have that has been a big blessing in this season of life. And I'm looking at it honestly. Mindy's such a powerhouse. She's a go-getter. In our company, Mike, there's certain things that only she can do. We have an all-female team that's bridal. And so while I do operations and finance and things and collaborate with folks behind the scene for all of our companies, it's allowing me more capacity to help at home, which is at times honestly really humbling, at times a little bit frustrating. But in other moments, I'm like, this is a total privilege. We've got 4 healthy kids. We live in a beautiful spot. And so I've tried to really adjust my perspective this year through the emotions and things of the change of like, and look at this great opportunity we have. Yeah, I dive into a little bit more around the house and things that maybe a normal dad may do, but it's been remarkable. And I don't think we'd have it any other way. And we're, like I just was telling you earlier, we're into the school year now, and it's a fun, different rhythm. So it's been fun to kind of adjust from a summer season of this freedom to now into like a school year rhythm with our family and kids.
Yeah, that's so cool, man. I remember we were in Mexico with Jenna and Drew Kutcher. Do you know them?
We've yet to meet them. I know we all have a bunch of friends in common, but love her stuff. And they seem like an incredible couple.
Yeah. And Drew, I mean, he takes care of the kids, right? But he is a man's man, like, and I love, there's so many guys that I think
too, right? I've yet to meet him, but he's fit as could be.
Yeah. Oh man, he is just stacked. And again, you guys have a lot in common. You guys should connect, especially in this season. But I mean, he's running their Airbnbs and, so like most people from the outside look and think that Drew's like this stay-at-home dad, right? But like he's doing all this other stuff behind the scenes too. And it's interesting the day and age that we live in, these role identification type things that we're, all kind of put into. I think it's freaking amazing. I've had the privilege of meeting, I don't know if I've met all your kids, but I think I met 3 of them. But it's cool. Like what better thing than being able to be present with your kids? Like that is so freaking awesome.
Yeah. And it really is our greatest work. Mother Teresa challenged people years back, like, if you want to change the world, go home and love on your family. And that really started to hit me in March. I was on a trip in South Central Africa, very far from home. I was 100% wholehearted there, but I knew it was probably going to be my final trip with my work, with the corporate role I had. But I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, this is a very different season from what this was like 10 years ago or 13 years ago, toddlers. And so this moment in life for us is never going to come back. So maybe some of your listeners are in that same spot too. I would just encourage them. It is your greatest work to invest in your kids, to see what makes them tick, what their interests are. And it's going to change, right? You've seen this with your kids, but to come alongside them, again, I'm a work in progress as a dad, but to come alongside them is just such a blast. And to be a part of the small things and the big things in their life, to go hunting with my boys, those are life memories and things that are so much more worth it. We can always, I truly believe this. I've really been thinking about this a lot this year. We can always make money tomorrow. Now, God's in control. He knows the future, right? But in a practical sense, if you're entrepreneurial or you're driven, you can figure out something. You can make more money tomorrow. So why not do the trip with your family? Why not take your wife out on the date or the getaway trip? Why not plan that bucket list thing? So yeah, to be in this season of life for us has been good. And I'll share more later, but we've mapped out a spreadsheet, Mike. I sat on a plane with a pastor who gave me this tip. He said, look at all of the key birthdays on the horizon for your family. Put them on a spreadsheet. Look at all of the key anniversaries for you and your spouse. And then he said, think about the vacations you want to do. And don't just think about them. Make a list and then try to insert them on that spreadsheet of like, when's a good year to do that trip to Washington, D.C., which we did 2 summers ago. When's a good year to do that bucket list thing, maybe Europe or African safari, New Zealand, whatever it may be for you, right? But he's like, what caught him off guard was his daughter had her sweet 16. And I think he and his wife had their like 25th anniversary, like in the same 60 days. And he's like, I'm a good dad and husband. But he's like, I didn't see all that coming until I started putting this chart together. And so that's something that's helped us is like, we've gotten really intentional saying, okay, this season with our kids, it's going to go by quick. We love traveling as a Linscombe family, But that's really fun to now check off the list of like things we get to do and be very strategic about it. And also know like, hey, here's key milestones for our family. Let's plan ahead and let's have a blast doing it.
I love that, like having that written down in a way that you can see it. Kara and I were talking about this, and you know this, and probably a lot of the audience knows this, but like we're legit empty nesters now. Our daughter's actually the youngest. She's in Bosnia right now. She's actually supposed to be going to Lebanon next week, Beirut, with YWAM. And, she going through this whole process has been interesting watching her, because she decided a couple of days ago that she wasn't going to go with everything that's going on. But, half of her crew is like mad and half of them are like, we're not going. And in YWAM, they get to decide. But like, I kind of just stood back, as a dad, and let her kind of work through this decision process. And she decided she wasn't going to go yesterday. She actually told us. And then yesterday afternoon, they raised the travel advisory from a level 3 to a level 4, and they're evacuating, the non-critical embassy and all this stuff. And it was just really cool watching her be able to go through that process, make the decision as a young adult. She actually made the comment. She said, this is the most adult decision I've ever had to make. And it's true. But watching her go through that process, and I think it's cool that the travel advisory got upped after she made the decision, because it would have been an easy decision if it was, level 4. But anyway, I say all that. And it's interesting watching you guys. We're empty nesters. Kara and I are in this season that we've known has been coming for a while, kind of like you knowing you're going to quit your job. You go into a new season. And I remember telling Kara, I'm in this group called GoBundance, which half the audience has probably heard about it. So this is the problem with benchmarking against other people's goals and values and vision, and measuring ourselves against what matters to other people. I told Kara a while back, I said, I feel like the last 10 years have kind of been like our lost years, if you will. Cause the first 10, 15 years, like we were crushing it in business, but I feel like I left a lot on the table the last 8 or 10 years. And I kind of caught myself when I was saying that, because I'm like, compared to what? And we set the intention when I sold my business to be very present in those years that you're talking about with your kids, because you only get those once.
Yeah.
And the whole reason that we launched our business was to have our freedom, if you will, so that I didn't have to work out of town 7 days a week and be told what to do. And yet the human nature is for me to say, I feel like I left a lot on the table, business wise, investing wise. And she quickly snapped me out of it. And she's like, well, what do you mean? She's like, we were very present and our kids are now gone. And we had so many opportunities to travel the world with them and to be present and all of the things. And I remember it took me back to a statement that I heard Brian Tracy say when I was probably 25 years old. He said, I've never met somebody on their deathbed that said, I wish I wouldn't have spent that much time with my family. And it all came back to what you're saying right now. And it's what I admire about you guys so much. And I saw you with your kids, your kids are functioning humans. They're good people. And that is just a reflection of, being present. I think so many times, and I even see this in the mastermind world that we're in, we have so many people that are high charging, successful entrepreneurs, and they're putting so much pressure on their kids to be someone, when in reality, all those kids want from us is love and presence, and to just be a mentor and to be present with us. And they learn so much more by just being and watching what we do versus what we tell them to do. So anyway, I wanted to say all that and mirror back to you guys. I'm just so impressed with what you guys have built as a family. And now that you get to not be, I don't want to say this the wrong way, but not be bound by a job, and you have your own schedule. How cool is that?
Yeah, no, it's such a blessing. I'm absolutely loving it. And, I still challenge myself real quick. The final thing with what you were saying is I just challenge dads to get more carpet time. And what I mean by that is get on the carpet, play Legos, enjoy that intentional time with your kids. Because we're saying that we've got an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old, 11 and 13, but for those younger two, they're all growing up quickly, but I'm realizing, man, those little windows of what they're interested in is changing month by month. So I'm still working on more carpet time myself. And yeah, with that, it's like you said, nobody regrets all of that investment. You can make more money another time. You can do another deal. You can grow another company, right? If you've got the knack for that, if you learn how to do that, you get into a season like you and Kara or other things in the future, there's time and space, God willing, to do more. So yeah, trying to lean into that, and it's progress over perfection around here, but we're really grateful for it.
I love it. Well, I don't often do this, but knowing what I know about you, what have you been thinking about? What's on your mind that we haven't talked about, I haven't asked, that you just want to share?
Yeah. I've been thinking a lot lately about the power of doing really small things every day. And I just got done wrapping up a season of assistant coaching tackle football with my son. Now, real quick, here's the crazy part, Mike. I didn't play football growing up. I was a basketball guy. We were good. We won 3 state championships in my high school years. But they offered me an opportunity to be assistant coach with my 7th, now 8th grader. And it was one of those things I kind of got voluntold into being a part. And I find myself in it. And I'm like, this is a really cool group of dads who care about their kid and they're present. And what I found was I also got to know my son's friends in junior high. So it was a big change for him from like at our school is elementary campus through 6th grade. Then we go to 7th grade. And I'm like, I want to know the kids. I want to know the boys he's rubbing shoulders with beyond the friends we know. And I just got to say, by being intentional, and again, it was 14 hours a week. And we're trying to run companies. I still had the corporate work that first season. It's a lot, but I'm so glad I did it. And as I look back on it, when we got to know more people, be further invested in this community, help shape the lives of these young men and speak life into them. But I was talking with the players, and I share this with a lot of folks, is I just think of the power of like little things over time. Like at my age, if I do my age in push-ups and sit-ups plus one extra, just to challenge myself, throw in one more, that's over 15,000 push-ups and over 15,000 sit-ups a year. So it's like anything in life. If you and I are like, hey, do 15,000 in a month or a day, it feels so overwhelming. It feels like such a huge thing. But I love the power of like limited, achievable objectives, like limited, clear, attainable goals. So we're not going to get in all SMART goals and all that talk, and that's a whole other conversation, right? But for me, I'm like, I could do 42 push-ups a day. I could do 42 sit-ups a day. And bluntly, I find myself doing it at 11:30 at night sometimes. But I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna keep the promise to myself. Are there some days where I'm doing 84 because I missed the day for it? Yeah. But the idea here is, whether we're working towards investing more in our freedom, or working ourselves out of a job, or working ourselves into a different season, what can you be doing little by little each day, this month, 6 months, over the coming year? You and I met in January, and like so much life has happened, so much exchange of encouragement, business ideas from the group we're in. That's a lot of life in, 9.5 months. And so that's just my challenge and encouragement, which you're already doing, but to others out there as well too. Like, don't underestimate the power of doing something small, but doing it every day and sticking with it.
So good, man. So good. Well, I appreciate you being here, man. I appreciate all the wisdom, and just really excited to, see what you and Mindy are able to do, as a couple, as a family. Now that, you both, and there's nothing wrong with, the job. I know you loved it and had a big impact, but how cool is it when you get to like, set your own destiny completely? And so I'm really excited to just watch that and see what you guys do from here forward, because you guys have just done such amazing things already. But, with 2 people aligned together the way that you are, it's going to be pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's a powerful thing. So we're grateful and honored to be a part. Thank you for having me on the show. But absolutely love it, and love this theme of what you help dive deeper into. Of like, what does it mean? And once you get that freedom, how do you use it? What do you use it for? And it's just spot on with what we talked about today. Family or helping others in the life around you.
Yeah. Well, if anybody wants to reach out or get in touch, what's the best way?
Yeah, Instagram is best. So it's at Jordan Linscombe. So JordanLin as in Nevada, where you're from. SCOMBE. It's a little hard to spell. Mindy was a Wallace before she married me. She's still a little bitter of how hard it is to spell our last name. So Linscombe. So Jordan Linscombe on Instagram. We'd be really honored if you followed along with us on the show as well too. The Something New show is on YouTube. So if you'd subscribe, I think you'd really love the show. Spread the word. And then you can also find thesomethingNewshow.com for more. But grateful to be a part, and would be honored to connect with you. And thanks so much, Mike, for having me on the show.
Yeah. And literally, people fly in from all over to go to your guys' bridal shop and have the experience, right?
They do. I mean, it's phenomenal. So we have assigned people, right? I traveled X amount of miles to get into Something New. We've had people from Australia, Europe, all across the US. So anyone interested in one of the top bridal experiences, whether it's bridal, prom, tux, formal wear, we'd be honored to help you So we're right in Colorado Springs, easy to find, but that's somethingnewboutique.com, or even better on Instagram, Something New Boutique. But yeah, it's wild, man. You know, anybody could buy most products and have them dropped at their doorstep, but a wedding dress is really special and different. And so it's just a phenomenal experience. It's something new. And if anybody is interested in that or find out more, check us out on Instagram.
Very good. Well, thanks for being here. Appreciate you.
Thanks so much, Mike. It was an honor. Good to be with you.